Hello, everyone. You're very welcome to the Con O'Neill Festival. This is the third annual Con O'Neill Festival. The first two were live and joyous, and we had people running amok around East Belfast and on lovely bus tours and dressing up as princesses and princes and people wiser than they should be on hobby horses and on all sorts. But obviously, none of that can be done this year. So we have done a lot of thinking, and we're going to deliver you then two kind of evenings, about 1 3/4 hours tonight and a bit less than that tomorrow night, to celebrate Con O'Neill, who has his ghostly presence is all over Belfast and Upper Clannaboy. And he is our very own Game of Thrones. He is a figure that is full of history, full of intrigue. And as you'll find out the rest of the night, then it's an inspiring project. So in a moment, then we're going to start our conversations. Later on, we will be talking to Roy Greer, who wrote the wonderful book about Con O'Neill. We will also be talking about the flora and fauna of the Craig Glen, Scalia. And finally, then we will have music from the Act True. And that's music in Irish, music in English, with a traditional accent, but with an eye to the future. So much going on. Please stay with us. Hopefully you've got your dinner on your knee, or a wee bit of popcorn, or maybe a nice cool drink, and you will be royally entertained. We put a lot of work into making this happen. Thank you very much to all the people who have been supporting us, including Urban Villages and the Department of Finance and Trade in Dublin, and also Cards Tourists, the Friends of Tourists. So lots of people to thank and lots of things to go on with. By the magic, we've got a gentleman called D, who's kind of backstage managing all the technology this evening. And he, at any time now, he should be able to press a button and Linda Irvine shall appear on the screen. Can that be done? There you are. Well, listen, you're the governor.
Like the genie that come out of the bottle, Stuart.
Very good. So you are the governor of the tourist organisation. For people who have dropped in out of curiosity, they've kind of come across some of this stuff. To tell everybody what's happening and you know, a little pen portrait first of all of tourists, and then you know, take it from there.
Okay, well, Tourists is an Irish language centre based in Skenos on the Newtownards Road. It's a project of East Belfast Mission. Started 8 years ago, September 2012, with one class, which grew to 2 classes, 3 classes, 4 classes, and before lockdown this year, we had about 16 classes a week. Very vibrant, lots of people just learning Irish, getting involved. But also then it extended into historical, cultural, music, all sorts of things. Just really, I suppose, motivated by the interest of the learners. The
Yes.
Neill Festival, this is the third year that it has happened, and it's been just a fabulous success, and maybe online, but I know it's going to be good.
Okay, so this figure, you know, we could walk around East Belfast at any moment, and we're going across the Conswater River, or we're taking a wee walk down Consbrook Avenue, or we know what the Castlereagh Road is, and we maybe think that there's a castle there. When did you become aware then that there was a greater significance, that there was layers of history and characters and stories there?
Well, I think after I started to learn Irish, the first thing that I discovered was about the place names. And, you know, before I'd never questioned, you know, that these words actually meant something. You know, somebody who was born and has spent all their life in Belfast, I didn't know that it was Belfarstia, mouth of the Sandbank Ford. So, you know, I started to recognize these things in my own area and started to become aware of some of the history, and became more and more frustrated because, you know, leading tourists, I knew that all these things were significant, they were important, but I didn't have either the knowledge or the ability or the time, you know, to be doing the research. And then in walked Gordon McCoy, and he brought all with him massive amount of research that he had done over the years, and sort of plopped it into my lap. And since then, we've turned it into lectures and bus tours and merchandise and a festival. So really, it was thanks to Gordon and the wonderful work that he's done.
Okay, and Gordon should get his dues at every available opportunity. Tomorrow night, there's going to be a little kind of film documentary which captures kind of some of the work that he's put in on the bus tour, which sadly we can't do at the moment. But you will be able to see Gordon in his element, walking around graveyards, and also high up on the hills, looking down over Belfast. So. By all means, stay tonight. But there's a great program tomorrow night, isn't there?
There is indeed, absolutely, and we're going to see Gordon actually telling us a lot about the work that he's done, which is fantastic, And he has just put in such a massive amount of research. And I think, what's interesting was, there had been so little interest in the Gaelic history of East Belfast just because of the nature of how things are. And that didn't put Gordon off. In fact, I think that spurred him on to discover what was there, what had been there, what was behind the names, what was behind the history. And it really, we've so much to thank him for that history, has been, I suppose, just revealed again.
Great. Okay. It really has been very exciting work. And you're going to go in a second, then, Linda, but presumably you've got a bowl of popcorn.
Yeah.
Yes. Given that this is all a bit live and a bit exciting, seat of the pants, I think we're on Facebook tonight, so maybe you go on Twitter and just let everybody know, because I told everybody to go on YouTube. But I'm sure a lot of people are going to find their way on here anyway. So exciting stuff. And as I say, tonight is going to be great. There's family stuff in a minute we're going to reveal. There's a craft project tomorrow night. Full disclosure, I know this person. She's called Colette Bailey. And yeah, you've seen that, haven't you?
I have, and it's absolutely beautiful. I was just blown away by the amount of work, and it's just fantastic. It really is. It is an artwork.
It is, yeah. And then very finally, tomorrow night is this idea then that the Craigie Glen, which some of us again might take for granted, is a beautiful piece of ancient woodland that is resonant with great stories. And we have Mark Doherty, who's another one of our posse, really, who I think it's about 24 minutes long. He's up there and he's just finding incredible things.
It's wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to Mark, because Mark is a wonderful tour guide and so just full of knowledge. So that would be great.
Right. Well, Linda, thank you. We're going to give you the rest of the night off. And
thank you.
You can perhaps monitor the social media and move everybody in the right direction. If anybody's got a wee bit lost in this kind of, well, for us, it's pioneering. Lots of people are doing online festivals, but it's great that Tourists is making the jump as well. So thank you. And we shall catch up with you down the road.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Linda. So next up then, this is the first of our scheduled moments, and we're going to bring up Kiva O'Connell now, and Kiva will tell us a little bit about her position in the tourist organisation and the mischief that she's been up to up at the fields in National Trust territory. I hope they're not watching tonight. I hope you're observing all the rules. So how are you, Kiva? You well?
I'm great, yeah. Thank you very much for having me, Stuart. Happy to be here.
Yes. And give us a little indication of your role within the tourist organisation then.
Well, going into lockdown, I was an Irish teacher for tourists, just taught the Monday morning class. And then during lockdown became an online teacher. And then there was a job advertised during lockdown with tourists to come in and support Linda doing some outreach and language facilitation. So I was lucky enough to get an interview, did the interview on, I think it was Skype during lockdown, and actually started during lockdown. And then August was when I actually got into the office in Tourist for the first time. So hit the ground running when we got in and started organising the classes, albeit in a different way.
Yeah.
And this week has been the first week of our online classes, and it's going well.
And yeah, and you're happy with all of that then. So it's very, very difficult times. And, this time last year, I've been involved in the tourist organization, again, for the record. But, Mondays, I think you would have had, I don't know, maybe 100 people in and out the doors, or partaking in language and learning. And so it's been a huge challenge. Everybody in the arts, culture, business is having to make changes, and tourists is, I think, been quite nimble on its feet.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that we were worried that some people would drop off because of things that were going on. But if anything, we saw a pickup in the interest. And the amount of people that are engaging online has been absolutely fantastic. So not only have we had to embrace new technology, but our learners have done it too, and everybody's adapted so well.
Okay. Well, listen, you have been part of the Con O'Neill is a historical figure, and Roy will be telling us a little bit more about that in a moment. But also the landscape of East Belfast and up towards the Church Road and Lisnabrini have got a historical significance, but also one of the oldest woodlands in Belfast. So there's as you walk up, you're just filled with awe. It's an incredible place. So as well as trying to learn online, you can physically take yourself up the Craigie Glen, and Kiva's got a few surprises for you. Isn't that right?
Well, yeah, I actually moved to kind of southeast Belfast about 3 years ago, and we would walk up the Glen all the time, but I had no idea of the cultural significance or any of the stories. We didn't even know what the fort was. We just had gone and thought, oh, this is a piece of land. It wasn't until I did the bus tour with Linda and Gordon and Brian and all the rest of them and then we ended up there, and I said, wow, this is where we go for a walk. So I was suddenly fascinated and started to read the books, and I actually did the tour twice. So I jumped at the chance to take Gordon McCoy's information and all the research he'd done into the plants. And I'm going to talk a wee bit more about that whenever I'm showing you some pictures and slides and stuff. But the idea behind my piece of work that I've carried on from Gordon's is that you can get out, you can go into nature. You don't need to worry about COVID rules or whatever else. Go yourself, go with those in your family or those in your bubble. You can use what we've prepared to learn a wee bit of Irish while you're there. And let us know how you get on.
And you might as well start that process now.
No problem. I'm just going to share my screen, which would be okay. So if I close this, you should be able to see my screen now, which is the video of the Craigie Glen. Is that correct?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Right, yeah, no problem. So what I'm going to do is, this is a short video, and I'm going to take you through it bit by bit. And then after this video will be available on YouTube and on our social media platforms. It'll be a 3-4 minute video that will be voiced over by me. And the idea is that you watch this video either before you go to the Glen or as you're in the Glen. And we'll go through it, and you'll see how you might be able to use this with either you, your family, or some young ones to pick up some words of Irish. So this will be the first page that you see that welcomes you to the Glen. And the wee fairies that you see there are called the Seaga. The Seaga is the Irish for the fairies, and they've got a mission for the adventurers in Craigie Glen. So Glan na Craigie is the Irish for that. And what they want you to do is move your way up through the Glen. So work your way up through Craigie Glen and help them label some plants and some animals while you're on your way. Now, my job is to make that as easy as possible for any parents or any learners or anything like that want to do that. And of course, we'll have to give a shout out to our friend Gordon McCoy, who's been helping us study all these wonderful things in our Glen. So as the fairies say here, before they met Gordon, they didn't know the Irish names for many of the plants that they saw every day. So the Seaga and ourselves are very grateful to Gordon. Gordon, I hope you're watching. So this is kind of how the video will be broken down. What I'll do is set you the task to find 7 of these plants or animals, and you have to work out what the English word for them is. So I'm going to give you the Irish word and a picture as a clue. You might get an extra wee hint. I think it's a bit difficult. And then you have to find this thing while you're in the Glen. So Stuart, could you tell me what you think a cran is?
Is it a kind of tree, or is
No,
it?
it's just a tree. So
Yes.
just making it as simple as possible. To start off, all you need to do is find a tree. So
Yeah.
you can see that as soon as you walk through the glen there, you should be able to see a tree straight away. And that's all you have to do. Now, they do get a wee bit more complicated. There are specific names of plants and that type of thing. But hopefully you say, well done, Stuart, Crana's tree. And hopefully if you looked up, you would find one.
Yeah.
Now, this is where we get a wee bit more complicated. So we start to use Gordon's fantastic information on the plants that we know occur and find them in Craigie Glen. And this is Aignan. So I've given the Irish in black, and in grey is how you would say it, the pronunciation, or the best that I can do with English phonetics. And then there's a hint, which is the picture there. So Stuart, Aignan, what do you think Aignan is from the picture?
I would say that is ivy.
Tick, gold star, my
Yay.
hood. So then it's your mission to find some ivy. So you don't need to find the ivy straight away. You just have to be on the lookout for the ivy as you're moving through the glen. And so what you'll see now is the rest of the pictures coming up. So we've got a madu. So I've never been to Craigie Glen and not seen a madu. Nonian. So depending on the time of year, hopefully you'll see some nonian. Or luchra. So this is one that I thought was a little bit difficult, the luchra. So I've given a hint here with the picture. Maybe you're in a hurry to find them. What do you think the luchra are, Stuart?
Is that some kind of wild grass, or?
Yeah, well, if you're in a hurry to find them, that's your clue. What type of wild grass? I'll give you a clue. It begins with R.
Rushes. Yeah.
There we go.
Here, am I spoiling it by having all these answers?
Well, look, if the people watch this video, they'll get a couple of wee helpers along the way. But the idea is that it's not too difficult. It's not going to be anything that you're going to get stuck in the middle of the glen trying to work out what it is. Yeah. I've actually listed 11 different ones, and you only need to find 7.
Yes.
So as we go through towards the end here, the fairies will be, or the Shielga, Gomaleshgal, excuse me, they'll be assessing whether they think that you've labelled the plants correctly or not. And as long as you find 7, then they will happily grant you permission into the Craigie Glen. And this is one of my favourite ones here. So there's a big waterfall in the glen. There's a couple of kind of smaller ones, but there's one big one that you hear before you see. And that's the Irish there.
Yes, amazing. Very good.
There you go. Utterly amazing, you might say.
Yes. And interesting there where you're talking about the properties of some of the plants, because I know that that's something Gordon's made a study of as well, because there's a whole kind of lore, I guess folk traditions about what plants can do and what they can cure and what they can help you with.
So, there's actually going to be another part to this. So this is kind of the beginner's jumping off point. If you're not an Irish speaker, but you're interested in learning a couple of focal or getting out into nature in this way, then this is the video for you. But as well on our social media platforms and on YouTube, well, actually I won't be able to put it on YouTube, but on social media, Facebook and the likes, there's actually going to be a breakdown of the plants that appear in Craigie Glen and their medical uses, or as Gordon had put it, their folklore uses, the mythology behind some of the plants. Of course, some of them really did have medicinal properties. Some of them, it was more kind of folklore, whether they had medicinal properties or not. But what I've done is made that into a bit of a quiz for the Gaeligory. So if you're a Leafa speaker, if you're fluent, there's going to be a bit of a quiz online, and we'll use Gordon's research to form clues, and then they'll have to find the answer in Irish. So that's going to be uploaded over the next couple of days. So there's something for everybody, and I'm really just looking to put Gordon's amazing work into the public sphere as much as I can.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you keep going up the Craigie Glen, it just gets better and better. Almost you're right up in the hills with the wind bushes, and you're talking about the fairies, but ultimately you're going to go end up in Lisnabrini, which is Irish for the place of the wrath of the fairy dwelling. Isn't that right?
That's it. Yeah, I was nearly going to interrupt you there, but you must have had a very good Irish teacher in the past year, because you remember that well. So Lisnabrini Fort, as I said before, I'd been there a couple of times and I had no idea of the significance of it until I did the tour and did a wee bit of research. And even in Con O'Neill's time, Lisnabrini Fort was a mythical, magical place that they held in high regard from ancient times. So, we're looking back now on Con O'Neill and talking about Lisnabrady Fort, but they sat in Lisnabrady Fort and looked back a further 300-400 years and talked about what it was used for then. So I like to kind of stand there and look out. The view is incredible, and to think, what has happened here that we'll never know about. Only the Shinga can tell us that.
It's amazing, and the names of some of the raths, like in Lisburn, Lisnagarvey, is the place of the gamblers, because that's where they used to get up there and have a wee gamble when nobody was looking. So access to language is a very, even if you're coming in at a fairly low level, how it changes and alters your understanding of living where we live. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and look, I am an Irish speaker. I was brought up speaking Irish. I grew up in the Shaw's Road Gaeltacht and did my early education through Irish. I've been an Irish teacher, and I still had absolutely no idea of the Gaelic culture and significance that was in East Belfast. It wasn't until I began, as I said, doing the tours, working with Linda, doing the research, speaking to people in the area, that, if I'm honest, I think that there's such a rich history of the Irish language in East Belfast, almost more than in many other parts of the city. Historically, it's like a treasure trove. Once you start to learn and open the books, you just think, oh my God, there's so much here. So I'm still learning every day. As you say, you're on a journey, which is tourists.
Yes. And then if you take Mark Doherty's video tomorrow night as well, which 23 minutes getting majestically lost in the Craigie Glen, and he brings in Van Morrison, who sings about it on the song on Hindford Street. And some would argue that the waterfall, which is mentioned in Brown Eyed Girl, is actually the waterfall from the Craigie Glen. And then there's a whole aspect of the American servicemen, and there's a memorial up there. So even for health and mental health and physical exercise, it's a sort of a you could it's the top of the Craigie Road. You cross over the outer ring. There's a little kind of gap in there. You can barely see it, and it says Craigie Glen.
Yeah.
And it's a couple of hours of your life that you will be so happy to have done. So, and now Keith is making it even more compelling, because you can learn stuff.
I want to hear from anybody that goes to the Craigie Glen. Whether you follow this video or not, take a photo of any plants that you see, interact, let us know what you're doing up the Glen, let us know what the weather's like. I just want to hear from as many people as possible what you feel when you're walking up the Glen. Like, you might call me in Egypt, but there's something magical about that fort, and whenever you stand there, you can totally feel it. And I just want to say as well, it is quite a trek, up through the Glen, and then there's a final hill that you have to go up, but it is worth it. Now, if there is any accessibility issues with people, you can actually access the Glen from a back road. So if you travel all the way up the rocky road, there's a small car park, and it's just a little short straight path to the actual fort, and it kind of cuts off the Glen. So if you're somebody that wouldn't be able to actually get up through the Glen, but you want to experience the magic of Lisnabrady Fort, go up the rocky road and look for the wee car park on the right hand side, and you'll be able to access the fort that way.
Fantastic. And part of the ongoing con mission is to try and investigate further, because the inauguration site of Con O'Neill is in the undergrowth up there, and his throne is in the Ulster Museum. Some bold people might be trying to make a replica of the throne and bring it back up there. We don't know.
I have heard some rumors about that, but I couldn't possibly comment.
So I think we've only really got started on this incredible voyage of discovery, and I don't think we're even being facetious when we say it's like Game of Thrones. I think there is so much going on there. So
there's one story, just when you mentioned Game of Thrones, and people, we're working on doing the tours kind of socially distanced in the future. So I really do recommend that you do the Con O'Neill tour for anybody watching. But there's specific parts in it where Brian, will tell you a story from the Con O'Neill story. And not only do I think that it's like our Game of Thrones, I am convinced that Game of Thrones is based on some of these stories.
Yeah.
The uncanny resemblance is almost too much to be coincidence. All I'm going to say is, for any Game of Thrones fans that know what the Red Wedding is, it happened in the 1600s, and we have the story.
Yes, okay. Well, thank you, Keith. We're just about to take our leave of you. So once again, then, if you're up the Creek Glen and you want to fetch that stuff off your phone, how do you access that then?
You can go to the Carjatar Facebook, you can go to the Carjatar Twitter or Instagram, and I'm also going to upload the video onto the YouTube. So that'll be available from tomorrow morning. I've heard that the weather is due to be quite nice for the next couple of days. So if you're looking for a nice stroll to do tomorrow or Sunday, there'll be a short video that you can watch before, or you can watch while you're doing it. And if you can stand to listen to my voice for another few minutes, hopefully you enjoy it. And please do let us know how you get on. Send us any photos to the social medias and comments and whatever you have. We really do want to hear from people because we want to know what to think of it.
Okay, Kiva O'Connell, thank you very much. And, as well as that, then, if you want to study under Kiva, there's all sorts of things you can do there as well. So be a friend of tourists. It takes you to interesting places. So in a second, we're going to speak to Roy Greer, but we're going to have a 2-minute bonus feature now, which is a little video which was made for, Linda will correct me if I get it wrong, but I think it's Peace and Reconciliation Week. And this was something that was put together really to show. There's going to be a series of them, but first of all, this is Gail, and this is how Gail found her way into tourists and how she found her way into learning a language and taking it right up to higher education.
I don't really know what the spur was. I thought, if I don't go, I'll chicken out and never go. So I literally went the next morning. And I was walking down, and the closer I got, the more I started looking around to see if there was anybody else who looked like they might be going. I was expecting like a classroom format. The chairs were set out and set in a horseshoe. And I know that they'd been running 1 or 2 weeks already, so I was a bit worried in case I'd missed a lot. And Matthew just jumped straight in with Kajay Shin, Shin Bujil Ishka. And then he addressed the class Kajay Shin, and the entire class answered Shin Bujil Ishka. You know, you were watching, where's he going, what's he going to get, you know, and the fact that everybody was answering together, if you didn't remember, it didn't matter. I can remember after the first week going home and going, you know, my head felt like it was swimming because there's so much stuff in it. And I suppose I'd gone down expecting to maybe learn 2 or 3 phrases, but instead there was, you know, 40, 50, 60 words all flying around my head. And I remember doing the dishes going, shin plata, shin bowla, shin fork, you know, and laughing at myself and standing in the kitchen going to see if anybody could hear what was going on in my head. My name is Gail McCune. I am from East Belfast, and I am a Protestant Irish speaker.
That was it. That was great, wasn't it? That was very good. That was a magnificent piece of work, and you saw the credits for everybody there at the end. It really brought a personal story to life, and there's going to be a series of those then commissioned by tourists in the coming months. If you just joined in, apologies. We were sort of pushing people towards YouTube. Now it's going onto Facebook, and I think a lot of people have caught up on that detour now. It's exciting times where we're kind of slightly figuring it out as we go along. And it's gone well so far. Lovely to speak to Linda, lovely to speak to Kiva, and lovely to watch that video of Gail and her own personal journey. Now, I'm going to get this book now and wave it because I can. This is the book. This is Roy Greer's work. It's called Con O'Neill, Last Gaelic Lord of Upper Clannaboy. It's published by White Row, which is a local publishing imprint which deals with histories of Donaghadee and Dundonald and various other places. Peter Carr, I think, is the man who makes all that happen. And Roy Greer is the man who went into that intriguing tunnel and came out with some more information about the man, Con O'Neill, who is kind of themed our weekend of activities. And I'm going to ask Dee now, our backstage wizard, to see if we can fetch up Roy. There you go. Yes.
At last.
Technology, isn't it perilous?
It's unbelievable.
Well, listen, lovely to see you, Roy, and it's lovely to get another opportunity to get you to talk about the book. And last year you were in Skenos. I think was it the Thursday or the Friday night, and the book was just launched. It was just about to be launched.
It was just out a few weeks, yeah.
Yes, yes. So, some of us had time to look at it. Some of us time to digest it. Other people are probably watching this going, where can we purchase this book?
Well, of course, the proper answer is from White Row. But if you want to do me a favor, you can purchase from me directly. And if you contact Money Ray Primary School, I'll make sure you get a copy.
Yeah,
I'll sign it.
Yeah. Listen, in the introduction to the con book, you describe yourself as an enthusiast. You don't presume to call yourself a historian, and you kind of laugh a little bit. You're going well, I'm that thing that historians dread.
Yeah,
somebody who's running around without permission, finding stories
absolutely.
and presenting to the public.
Yeah.
Where did your enthusiasm for this subject come from?
Okay, well, I was listening to your previous speaker, and as an Ulster Scot and a proud Ulster Scot, I hope I'm not an interloper here tonight, but I was walking Madhu near the Cran up at the Henry Jones playing fields. Basically, that's where this arose from. I used to walk my Labradors up at the Henry Jones playing field, and for some reason, and this is the God's honest truth, I used to think on those dark nights of Gaelic warriors, Scottish clansmen, parading across those hills on horseback, and little knowing that I was actually walking my dog next to the place where the castle stood, and next to the site where the inauguration of Con O'Neill would have taken place. So it arose from me thinking, why on earth, here I am, an East Belfast boy, born and bred, lived all my adult life, or most of it, in East Belfast. Why is Castlereagh called Castlereagh? And where is the castle? You've got Castle Place, Castle Manor, Castlereagh. And I didn't really know too much about Con O'Neill either. So it was really from that point, it was the castle that drew me in. And because I lived in Glenview Avenue, which is just below the castle site, that got me thinking. And it was more than a 10-year journey to actually get to the point where I was able to go to publish.
Yes, I went to Lead Hill School, just near where you are as well, and I was fascinated to. Well, you heard these things, and every now and again you hear someone would dig up something in their garden of vaguely historical significance, and I think at one stage they were looking for the castle in the wrong place, and it was one of my teachers, Mrs. Douglas, who actually said to them, It's over that way, and I don't know how she knew that, but or whether it was intuition or she was guided by history, but she has pointed out the place where the castle was, and I think everybody's now accepted that's the right location.
Yeah.
So you're gonna kind of, by way of introduction, do a few little bits of reading as well, Roy. Before we go there. Gordon McCoy, his name's come up a lot, and he's sort of connected all of us in a lot of ways with his energy. And he said that anybody who gets too close to the con story, who delves in that story, goes slightly mad. Would you agree with that?
Well, as I was running around school yesterday in my German lederhosen, I suppose that's probably true, pretending to be Robin Hood.
Right.
But yeah, can I just say a word about Gordon? When I was doing this, and as you said, rightly so, I'm an amateur, a complete amateur and an enthusiast. Now, I've done my level best to verify and corroborate everything that's gone into the book, because I don't want anybody coming, and they will come and say, well, that's not correct, and I disagree, and so on. But I want to at least have that backed up. But on that journey, I can say there were people who basically closed the door in this very attractive face, um, who just didn't want to know and didn't help. But I have to say, Gordon McCoy just opened the door. He was so helpful. He was working on a project on Con O'Neill himself, and he shared his knowledge of the Irish and some literature that he had. I just want to thank Gordon publicly, because I mean, he's a great guy, and he helped me a lot, particularly towards the end of getting the book published.
One of the really thrilling things about last year in the Con Festival was that I think I'm not sure how much Gordon is to thank for that, but you had, because to a degree, Con is this cipher. You know, we don't quite know what he looked like.
Yeah.
There are very few physical traces of where he's been and where he's been about, but you found the signature. And you know, and traditionally would always spelt Con with two N's.
Yeah.
And you discovered that actually Con was with one N.
Yeah.
Retrace those steps a little bit that led to that moment.
Well, Stuart, as an amateur, I had to learn on my feet. I used the internet an awful lot, and a good colleague of mine bought me a subscription for the Linen Hall Library, which was very helpful. I actually also had a ticket for Queen's Library under the pseudonym of a lecturer from St Andrews University, which got me in a bit of bother at one stage. But the Public Record Office was also somewhere which, if anybody's been there, it's a very daunting first visit, because you haven't a clue. You are out of your comfort zone, and it took me a few visits before I really understood how to make use of the various records they have on file. And when they brought out these various documents, that I was touching parchment 400 years old. And as I was looking down through it, and it's very difficult to decipher because of the language that's used, but I came to put my hand, to trace my fingers across Con O'Neill's signature, and I cried, not great sobs, but just with joy and just a feeling of connection with Con O'Neill at that moment. And that was probably one of the best moments on the journey, and you know, was a real thrill for me. And it is in the book. There's a nice little photograph of Con's signature. Unfortunately, of course, in that signature, he was beginning the process of signing away his territory.
Yes.
And signing away his son's inheritance.
So this is part of the fascination of the story, because there's so much intrigue in there. There's the O'Neills of Tyrone, and then there's the O'Neills of the yellow-haired clan of Hugh, and at this time then the Normans have already been in, but the English under Chichester and Elizabeth are kind of getting their arm in.
Yeah.
The Scottish are hanging around. So it's, you know, everybody's being opportunistic. Everybody's doing bits of land grabs and eyeing up the territory. So he's right in the middle of this pivotal point in history, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Con's story. Con finds himself at basically a transition point, or a tipping point, or a pivotal point in Irish history, where you have in a sense, the demise of the Gaelic tradition and culture, and the coming in of the Scots. And you know, it's also in a sense, it's a more than culture. I mean, it touches on religion as well, and it touches on economics, because the new marketplace was coming to Ireland, and this was something that quite a number of authors have actually pointed out, the fact that the Gaelic lords worked in a completely different way, and that this was foreign to them, and that was in part the cause of some of their undoing, that they didn't embrace or weren't totally au fait with new methodology, the new way of working in the in terms of tenants and rents, as opposed to the old ways of tribute and, you know, part of an extended family, if you like, with an overlord.
Okay.
So Con finds himself. His story is really at this pivotal point, and that's what I try to do in the book is to bring people on a journey with the O'Neills and their tradition that goes back into the mists of time, and how those O'Neills in Tyrone found their way across the top of Lough Neagh into County Antrim and into the Norman earldom, and parked themselves essentially in Antrim and Down. And then Con sort of comes in the middle of that story in 1603, really around that period. And then you have the incoming of the Scots. So the book tries to take people on a journey, you know, from beginning to modern times.
Okay. Well, you've whetted our appetite, really. I'm going to wave this book again to give it a good note, because it's lavishly illustrated, and obviously there's a huge part of the book as well which brings you up to that point, the bewildering tapestry of Irish history, which every now and again your head will explode because there's so many people with similar names. But
Yes.
You unpicked it, so. You're gonna read a little piece from us now. I think you've indicated it's called Beginnings. So just to really kind of set the frame.
Okay, I'll do my best here. Okay, so this is from chapter 1. The brooding hulk of Castlereagh once cast a long shadow across the Castlereagh plateau, which commands the southern floodplain of the River Lagan. Probably built in the late 15th or early 16th century, this once imposing tower house delineated the end point in the remarkable journey of the Clanaboy O'Neills from their heartland in northeastern Tyrone and the upper reaches of Lough Neagh into counties Antrim and Down.
Okay. It continues, and I think you should maybe set up the next reading, because we're getting close to Con, really.
Yeah.
And we'll bring him in. So the next bit is the Clanaboy cross the Ban. So again, it's one of those pivotal moments, really, where kind of history kind of develops, moves, rotates, and people make their bid for another piece of territory.
Yeah. So just to set the scene, Stuart, the O'Neills they predate most of the royal families in Europe. So this family name, as we know in Ulster, is a really important family name, and the sons of I've lost my train of thought. Basically, two sons come into the northwest of Ulster and settle there in Tyrone and Tyrconnell, and basically it's from that route in Tyrone that the Clanaboy O'Neills come. There's a family, as usual in Irish history. There's squabbles between family groups, and you have a junior side of the family and a senior side, and the Clanaboy come from the junior side. And they come through this guy called Yellow Hugh, or as Gordon McCoy told me, it was Aibwe, where I was calling him Aid. But he's really the founder of the Clanaboy and the great grandfather of Con O'Neill. So this little bit is about how he comes to power in Tyrone way back in 1260 AD, so the 13th century. So Aibwe, the founder of the Clanaboy. The next three kings of Tyrone were descendants of Aidmeath, who had come to an arrangement with the new earls of Ulster, Walter de Burgh, and his son Richard de Burgh. Brian of Down was succeeded by his second cousin, Yellow Hugh. He was born around 1230, and Hugh was the son of Donald Og and Cicely McLaughlin, and was known as Yellow Hugh because of his distinctive fair hair. Back in 1259, encouraged by the Lord of Tyrconnell, Yellow Hugh had begun to plot against his uncle Brian. However, he kept his powder dry and even stood with Brian at the Battle of Down. Now, somewhat fortuitously, Brian's death allowed the ambitious young pretender to succeed him as king in Tyrone. However, Yellow Hugh's authority was hotly disputed, and within the year he was deposed and banished when his own brother, Neill was promoted to the kingship. Undeterred, Hugh continued to press his claim, unseating his brother in the following year. In 1263, Yellow Hugh revisited Brian of Down's ambition to take the earldom away, and he sent an emissary to Magnus, the King of Norway, offering him the throne of Ireland if he would assist in the task. I think that says something about the power of the O'Neills. Sometimes we're inclined to diminish these figures as, small tribal groups. Here we have Yellow Hugh sending an emissary to the King of Norway to invite him to take control of the High Kingship of Ireland. They were no small fish. However, with his offer rejected, the ever-resilient Hugh changed tact and literally jumped into bed with the Anglo-Normans, marrying Eleanor de Nangle, a cousin of Walter de Burgh, Earl of Ulster. Now, in this little statement, and these are the things that sort of touch me, amuse me, in the very outset of the Clan-a-Boy, in the very beginnings of the Clan-a-Boy, here they are marrying into the Anglo-Norman family of the de Burgh. So we see the great ironies of history, even in this great Irish family. So at the very outset, we have this intermingling of blood.
I think you mentioned the Gaels and the Gauls were kind of were pragmatically dealing with each other when they had to.
And it's been a great one of the things, Stuart, that I, as a proud Ulsterman, I'm proud of every story. The great stories we have, Cahulin, the Finn McCool, and I share them all with great relish. Just as I share Con O'Neill, and of course the scoundrels, I suppose, in some courts, the Montgomery and Hamilton, as they come along into the story. But Yellow Hugh, he's the man who begins this new dispensation, this new dynasty, the Clan-a-Boy, and it's his grandson Henry who will eventually cross the ban and come in to Antrim and Down and give the Normans a bit of a hiding, and some of the Gaelic families as well, of course.
Yes. So Con O'Neill, he's kind of doing his own. He's doing his own thing. He's 14 years old, and there's another one of those kind of historic convulsions, and he finds himself in the right place at the right time. Very young, obviously not quite ready to kind of take on full power, and his father kind of is at his side a little bit to give him some counselling. But at the same extent, there's a moment. Again, you're talking about the Henry Jones playing fields up by the church road, and close to where the castle was, there is the Rath. That was the inauguration site, and we believe, although some people will contest it, that the throne that is in the Ulster Museum was up there, and there was a whole ceremony involved, and that's when it gets quite exciting in terms of, obviously history is exciting, but the fabric of the lore and the ritual and tradition and how a whole era kind of recognized the change of power. So I think you're going to read a little bit about the inauguration.
And something, Stuart, that struck me when we read of Irish inaugurations of chiefs upon this hill that would have been in the locality. The ceremony, we look at it and with a modern eye, you look and you think, my goodness, that's strange and it's odd. But yet, when I looked at the coronation of Queen Elizabeth, there's the ritual that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years, and the same ritual that are the current monarch of the UK. It follows quite a similar pattern to some of the things that the Irish chieftains would have pursued in their own inaugurations. There is no actual account of the inauguration of Con O'Neill, but this is drawn from the various histories of inauguration, and particularly from the work of Elizabeth Fitzpatrick. So this is imagining Con's inauguration on that little hill just across from the castle. There are no accounts of Con's inauguration as chief in 1589. However, from the work of Elizabeth Fitzpatrick and others, we can imagine what would have taken place. On the day of Con's inauguration, excitement will have filled the air, and a general hubbub of anticipation echoed throughout the castle. As Con was made ready, the chief men of Clannaboy will have assembled, flanked by gallow glasses, that's the Scots who were hired mercenaries, their banners unfurled. Priests in procession sent plumes of incense into the morning sky. Uilleann pipes droned in time to ancient drum beats, as nervous and excited, and with his father by his side, the 14-year-old Con appeared in the doorway of Castlereagh and took in the awesome scene. Dressed in a simple tunic and followed by his principal vassals, Con will have made the short walk to the Mound of Anointing, where he would be hailed chief after the ancient rites of the Clannaboy. A path will have opened amidst the assembled throng, made up of the religious elite, Con's Derb Féin, and the heads of Upper Clannaboy's various septs. Con's court and advisors will also have been in attendance: his chief counsellor, his treasurer, the keeper of his hostages, his Brehon lawyer, poets, bards of literature and history, his chief builder, his physician, the captains of the wood cairn, his steward, his housekeeper, his procurator, charged with procurement of arms and victuals, the keeper of his horses, the keeper of his hounds, his keeper of cattle, his butler, and his minstrels, among others. You know, again, we forget that there was a court connected with the Clannaboy. Then, like his ancestors before him, Con will have climbed the sacred mound to be inaugurated on Clannaboy's historic stone throne. The ceremony was steeped in ritual. Similar ceremonies had taken place for centuries on the hilltops of Ireland. Sir Henry Sidney mentions an attempted inauguration on this very coronation mound in 1568, when an attempt was made to use the prestige attaching to the mound to sabotage Sir Brian McPhelim. Upper Clannaboy's leading clerics will have performed the ceremony's religious rites, including the ritual bathing or washing and anointing of Con's head with holy oil. Then, amid his nobles, warriors, bards, and olos, Con will have set aside his sword and taken an oath to preserve all the ancient former customs of the country inviolable, to deliver up the succession peacefully to his Taoiseach, and then hath a wand delivered to him by one whose proper office that is, after which, descending from the stone, he turneth himself around thrice forward and thrice backward. This thrice turning, or diesel, symbolized the chief reviewing his territory and his subjects, in essence, claiming lordship over all he surveyed.
Hey, there you go. So there absolutely is circumstance and pomp, and I think at one stage there's the hazel wand and the shoe and all of those things that give you that kind of I guess that sense of things changing and things being enacted and inaugurated. The Con story. Con was a kind of he was around at the same time as Shakespeare, and Shakespeare obviously had so many great flawed kings, be it Macbeth or Richard II or Lear, and to what extent do you think that Con, did he make errors? Did he, because he like I say, he had to negotiate this very precarious moment where everyone is encroaching, and then there's all these sort of related little tribes that are all kind of, eyeing up their opportunities. Yeah. Could he have done anything better, do you think? Could he have managed, because, spoiler alert, but he lost a lot of his land ultimately, and he ended up quite a sad figure. But what do you think? Was it his fault?
I think this is the most difficult part of Con's story. I think there's truth on both sides of the fence. I think he was foolish in some ways. I also think he was played by those who had a greater understanding of the legal framework. Land in Ireland didn't pass in the same way as land passed through, crown regulations, legal title, and renting out, tenants, and all of that was foreign to Con. And I think, in a sense, he was someone who, well, if I can just go back a little bit, most of the Gaelic lords who lost land after the 9 Years' War, which was the big event, if you like, that was happening at the end of Queen Elizabeth I's reign in Ireland. Hugh O'Neill had rebelled, and many of the Irish chieftains had rose up with him, either by dint of wanting to join him or being forced, as he endeavoured to do with the Clannaboy O'Neills, who tended to side with the crown. So after the 9 Years' War, there was this confiscation of land, and many of the Irish chieftains who retained land only retained about 20% or a fifth in any settlement after the 9 Years' War. I mean, even Tyrone, even Hugh O'Neill, he probably came out of the 9 Years' War pretty much not intact, but he ended up with a sizable proportion of his previously held territory. Con O'Neill, on the other hand, came out of this with, he was going to come out of it with a half until Hamilton intervened, and then it was chopped down to a third. But he still bucked the trend. And one of the things that if he had been able to, if he had been able to bring in enough tenants with the money, the income that he could have generated from that, he had the potential. And I mean, this is a vast territory we're talking about. This is not a few small farms. This is most of the central part of County Down, centering around Castlereagh, right down towards Kilmore, right out across to Lisburn. This was no small undertaking, and if he could have managed that better, then he could have been a wealthy, comfortable lord. There was that potential there for him, but all of the legal jargon, the legalese around land ownership was either Scottish law or English law, and he wasn't au fait with that. Okay. He was hampered by, not even his people. The people who would have owed allegiance to Con didn't understand or didn't have any concept or acceptance of the notion of tenancy. So he found it very difficult to make his territory viable. He also came to the page with enormous debts, which he then tried to recoup through either leasing out at really paltry levels. You could say that he didn't understand the value of his land. You could say that he didn't fully understand the value of timber on his land.
Yes.
And therefore the deals he made were poor deals.
Okay.
But
well, listen, Roy, we're gonna interrupt you just briefly because I would like to squeeze in 2 more readings, and there's another moment then that seems to bring things to a head where Chichester has his moment and he gets his chance to lock up Con, and the piece you're going to read is called A Fateful Christmas, and this is again, this is almost like a Hollywood film kind of was what goes on here, but so there are moments in the story, and then they're possibly embellished, or certainly history isn't safe in the hands of the victors, and he gets treated almost as a bit of a drunk and a bit of a bum sometimes in history, but certainly there's this moment that provokes the turning point in his career. If you could read that would be great.
Yeah. So this is really where everything starts to unravel. At Christmas 1602, 3 months before the death of Elizabeth I, Con hosted a grand debauch, or a wild party, at Castlereagh, attended by his friends and followers and his brothers Hugh Merta and Toole. In the windows of the castle, glowing candles welcomed the blessed couple and weary strangers. The chill night air rang to the chime of cruet and claret harps. Sorry, I must hold up my hand at my Irish pronunciations. I'm actually going to try and avoid them here so I don't offend anyone. The rumble of borons and timpans and haunting swirl of pipes could be heard in the humble cottages nearby. Waves of laughter and raucous jests filled the room. Jigs and reels were danced upon the wooden boards, while guests feasted on wild boar, goose, and freshly caught salmon. Minstrels and poets regaled the merry assembly with tales of Epiphany and of the clan of boys' former glories, feeding with song the patriots' fire, and of course orations in praise of their illustrious host, Con MacNeil, MacBrien, Faggerda, O'Neill, Con O'Neill. However, with the party in full swing, a cowed servant approached Con with the unwelcome news that the wine had run out and his cellar was dry. This was a source of great embarrassment to the chief, who, not wishing to end the merriment nor to appear miserly, sent his men off to retrieve a consignment of wine he had recently smuggled in from the continent. The servants set off in the darkness to retrieve the barrels, which may have been stashed near the estuary of the Conswater River. With their runlets packed onto a cart, Con's merry men began the unenviable trek uphill back to the castle. However, on the return journey, they were intercepted near St. Columcille's church, beside what is now the Clarawood estate, by soldiers from the Belfast garrison. In what must have been a very confusing exchange between the English-speaking soldiers and the Irish-speaking servants, a fracas broke out, during which Con's men took a severe beating. To add insult to the injury, the soldiers confiscated the wine until Con should pay a lately imposed duty. The servants returned empty-handed to the castle, battered and bleeding, complaining that the soldiers were demanding payment of duty before Con could be reunited with his wine. Con, however, was in no mood to think about such niceties, and he became enraged at the insolence of the English troops. Not only had they seized his wine, but they had belittled his men and disrespected his position. For a second time that evening, Con had been embarrassed in front of his guests. When he discovered that his men had been beaten, although they had outnumbered the soldiers by 2 to 1, Con is said to have sworn by his father and the souls of his ancestors that they should never more be servants of his nor his family till they had beaten back the soldiers and taken back the wine. Con's wine would soon prove to be the most expensive consignment of wine in Irish history. With their master's words stinging in their ears, Con's chastened men armed themselves and set off towards St. Columcille's, and then followed the dirt track down towards the village of east of Belfast. Within a short distance, they caught up with the English soldiers and engaged them. In the ensuing melee, a soldier was mortally wounded, but the English got the upper hand and chased off their assailants, pursuing Con's men towards the castle and killing several on the way. Deaths that are often overlooked in this narrative. As the chase approached the lights of Castlereagh, the soldiers halted, fearing the dispatch of reinforcements from the castle. The Montgomery manuscripts add that Con and his guests witnessed the drama from the turrets of the Eagle's Nest, their party mood well and truly dampened. Within a week, Arthur Chichester had established an office of inquest, which determined that Con bore responsibility for the affray, and then, accompanied by an escort of towards 100 men, he rode out to Castlereagh, and when he arrested Con and members of his inner circle.
Okay, well, there you go. That's a kind of a nemesis in terms of the arc of that story then, and you know, we haven't got long to go now, Roy, but how hard is it to ascertain the actual versifiable fact and the myth around these kind of stories? Do you have to disappear into rooms, go through stacks of volumes? You know, Is it so far back in the past that it's really hard to kind of to verify a lot of that stuff?
Well, some of it is found in the calendar of state papers. For instance, there's one incident before this when Con rises up with the MacDonalds to try and take over the Dufferin around Killaloe. And that's recorded in the actual calendar of state papers of the government. Con O'Neill is an actual physical historical figure. We also have all the various documents, the leases and so forth that tell of the various land agreements he made with Montgomery, Hamilton, Moy's Hill, etc. So we have those documents. We have the stone chair. I mean, another wonderful moment for me was to just put my hand across the stone chair in the Ulster Museum, and that's a beautiful room where we actually have the ring of one of the great Tyrone O'Neills with the red hand on it, and that ring is there for all to see, and these artifacts are there. We know the site of the castle. We know the inauguration site. There are maps from the Downshire maps which show the site of the castle very clearly, exactly where we think it is. We also have other maps that actually show Con's Bridge.
I was going to
Because the
ask
little
you
bridge
about
down,
that,
by a beta there. People dispute it and say it's a Victorian folly. Well, it's on a map of 1680. Con's Bridge is there, and it's spelt with 2 N's. So
Yeah.
I'd have to take issue with that. But yeah, I'm satisfied that the story, as you said, is probably embellished. The rope and the cheese and the scaling of the wall, but it's also written about by Con's enemies. It's recorded, well, not enemies, but folk who were maybe taking advantage of him. It's written about by Hamilton and Montgomery only a few years after the event. And much of history is accepted many years after the event. So I think we're closer. The documents that we have are maybe closer to the story of Con. We have some that are right up there and contemporary with him in the record of the English government, if you like. But we also have the records of the Scots that tell his story. And the story, while it may deviate a little bit between the two accounts, they're remarkably similar.
Okay. Well, listen, you mentioned the cheese and the rope, and while these are possibly not 100% true or very hard to tell, they are rip-roaring stories. And tomorrow night during the Con O'Neill Festival, we have what is essentially a story for children. It's called Con's Great Escape. And Colette has made these drawings and these pieces of art, applique art and stuff, which show an interpretation of what might have went on. But it's a fantastic story. So give us, if you will, Roy, your account from your book
of the escape.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
Page 110, is it?
What's that?
Yeah.
Yes, I've got it. Yes. So Con is incarcerated following that incident. He's incarcerated for the second time in Carrickfergus Castle, which was the strongest fort in all of, well, certainly Ulster. But he does make his escape from it. And I'll just read that to you now and how that comes about. So this is entitled The Lady, the Laird, and the Entrepreneur. So during Con's imprisonment, his wife Ailish spent considerable time in Carrickfergus, perhaps even lodging there. It seems that she was able to meet and talk freely with her husband, not least about how to secure his freedom. Perhaps it was during one of their walks down by the harbour that she became acquainted with Thomas Montgomery from Blackstone in Ayrshire. Thomas was an entrepreneur who traded grain with the English garrison using his own ship and was well known in the town. The Montgomery manuscripts describe him as a discreet, sensible gentleman, and he would play a pivotal role in the coming events. When Thomas learned of Con's plight, he immediately informed his kinsman, Hugh Montgomery. This was the opportunity the Scottish Laird had been waiting for. With Thomas acting as a conduit, contact was established between Ailish and the Laird of Braidstone. Born in Loch Gall, County Armagh, in around 1585, Ailish was of noble stock, being the daughter of Art MacBaron, the brother of Hugh O'Neill of Tyrone. She was also a granddaughter of the Earls of Tyrone and Kildare. Her brother Owen Roe would lead the rebellion during and after 1642. Her marriage to Con had been of great political and military significance, uniting two warring factions, the O'Neills of Tyrone and the O'Neills of Upper Clannaboy. In addition, it established a link with the great Geraldine dynasty, and I said dysentery, the great Geraldine dynasty of Leinster. In short, Ailish was a lady of great standing. She was astute and feared the intervention of Chichester in her husband's future trial. She and Con would work ably together to secure his release. There are two accounts of what happened next, one in the Montgomery manuscript, in the Hamilton manuscripts, and the other in the Montgomery manuscripts. I have drawn from both to describe the most likely course of events. With time of the essence, Thomas acted as an intermediary, carrying correspondence back and forth between Carrickfergus and Ayrshire. Some records suggest that Ailish travelled to Scotland to deal directly with the Laird. But Ailish was more than an intermediary. She was a full partner and more in this endeavour, and her tenacity and clear thinking would eventually secure the Laird's assistance. Hugh Montgomery was a Protestant landowner from Ayrshire who was connected to the noble house of Eglinton. He was also an experienced soldier, having fought the Spanish. The Montgomery manuscripts describe him as of middle stature, ruddy complexion, a man sprightly and cheerful countenance, strong and agile, with a vigorous constitution, seldom being sick, temperate in meat and drink, and well educated. Montgomery was well placed to help Con, having long established trading links with Ulster. More importantly, he was a close ally of King James, who had recently restored Montgomery to favour following his bloody feud with the Cunninghams. Montgomery had also provided the king with intelligence concerning Elizabeth's failing health via secret communications with his brother George in London, and was in a position to petition the king on Con's behalf. The Montgomerys were also interested in settling lands in Ulster. To all intents and purposes, this was a marriage made in heaven. Although Ailish was a capable woman, Montgomery held all the aces in the negotiations and drove a hard bargain. The price he set for Con's freedom was astronomical. In exchange for Montgomery's assistance in springing Con from prison and getting a pardon from the king, Con would relinquish half of his ancestral lands to Montgomery. The sheer magnitude of the transfer shows how seriously Ailish took his predicament and how difficult they believed it would be to win Con's freedom. But were they right? Is it possible that if Con had held his nerve, he would have been pardoned and restored to his lands? James had already pardoned numerous Irish leaders and restored them. I'm going to move on because I know time is of the essence here. So they hatch a plan between them to by which Thomas would woo the jailer of Carrickfergus's daughter, a lady called Anna Dobbin. And Thomas does that rather successfully. In fact, he doesn't just, this is just not a plot. He actually goes on to marry Anna, and they live together in Newtownards. But the plan is that by using Anna and her father, the jailer, they will have success in springing Con from Carrickfergus. And I'll just read to you briefly as to how that comes about. The first part of the plan involved winning an influential ally inside the castle. To that end, Thomas Montgomery was tasked with romancing Anna Dobbin, daughter of the castle jailer. This went well, indeed went very well, and within a short time, Thomas and Anna were very much in love. Their feeling for one another went far beyond the cynical use of Anna intended in the plan. Whether Anna's father knew of the plan, we cannot be sure. However, it would seem likely that he did and was committed to its success. Thomas and Anna would eventually marry and go on to live in Montgomery's town of Newton. As we have seen, Con's confinement was infinitely more pleasant than that usually experienced by prisoners on death row. I'm trying to move on. It was now July 1604, and Con had been a prisoner for approximately 18 months. With phase 1 an unbridled success, it was time for phase 2. Once more, Montgomery called upon the assistance of his nephew, who was furnished with instructions and letters to the said Con, outlining the details of how the breakout would be effected, by whom and when. With the jailer's support secured, phase 2 unfolded. Wealthy prisoners back then relied upon their family to bring them clothing, blankets, and food parcels, so they did not have to depend on prison cuisine. Ailish managed to smuggle in a rope, said to have been concealed in a hollowed-out cheese. On the appointed evening, the jailer plied the prison guard with alcohol. Then Anna or her father unlocked Con's cell to effect his escape. Alternatively, given the relaxed terms of his captivity, it is possible that Con had attended what was effectively his own leaving party, and during the merriment escaped undetected. Whatever the truth, under cover of darkness, he made his way to the perimeter wall, secured the smuggled rope, and heart thumping, hid in the shadows, awaiting the signal from the rescue boat. Then, just as planned, a light flickered momentarily as Thomas's sloop moored in the castle's shadow. As a drunken revelry proceeded in the guardroom, Con descended the seaboard wall. Clearly he was fit and strong, as the descent would have required considerable strength and not a little courage, and if you've ever looked over the wall of Carrickfergus Castle, you'll know that to be true. Landing on the rocky foreshore, he swam or waded out to the awaiting boat and unceremoniously clambered aboard. As silently as it had arrived, Montgomery's sloop weighed anchor and made the short journey across the loch to Bangor. And it's there in Bangor Con hides himself in what is still standing and part of Con's story, the tower of the Bangor church. In fact, in those days, there was no steeple on it. And Con hid in the tower for 3 days before eventually making the journey across to Scotland, where the next phase to get his pardon from the king would take place.
History, eh? What a great story. I have to ask, as we're wrapping up now, Roy, have you been tempted to write other books to delve further into the history of our locality?
Oh, thanks for that lead in, Stuart. Well, look, the next phase is well underway. Of 20,000 words written about Con O'Neill's son, Daniel O'Neill, and you will not believe his story. I mean, it's unbelievable. He becomes one of the richest men in England from nothing.
Yes.
He's in the very commencement of the British Army. He fought for King Charles I and King Charles II. He's in every battle in Scotland during the Civil War, in England and in Ireland. And furthermore, and this is just for tonight, I haven't revealed this before, I went through some of the genealogies and I've traced Daniel O'Neill's, his bloodline through to I think it's the 17th Lord Louth, who now lives in Jersey. Right. And my next plan is to make contact. I'm amazed that, that we can physically meet, talk to someone who is of Con O'Neill's bloodline and Daniel O'Neill's bloodline. Perhaps I could read one paragraph just in closing.
Yes, go on ahead.
Time. Just to sum Con up, and to know Con the man, we must interpret his unwritten history. He was a husband who enjoyed the love and loyalty of his wife, a father who provided for his sons, as his kingdom shrank and his health failed, a brother who remembered his siblings, a chief beloved by his tribe. Volatile, yes, but a military leader, a man of faith, an attachment to the Church of St. Columcille at Knock, a generous man who enjoyed entertaining his friends, and perhaps herein lay the seeds of his downfall. However, transcending all of this, Con O'Neill was a man out of time, a feudal lord overwhelmed by the unleashing of market forces, an Irish chief consumed in the cataclysmic clash of Gaelic and British cultures. Childhood apart, Con MacNiall MacBrien Fagarda O'Neill lived a turbulent life, his youth overshadowed by Tyrone's War, his coming of age given over to rebellion, imprisonment, and intrigue, his maturity spent battling bankruptcy. His was a life of huge contrasts, a life of grandeur and ignominy, a life that ended mysteriously early, a life lived on the edge. Rest in peace, old king.
Roy, that's fantastic. Your book's still available. Chase it down. It is magnificent. Roy H. Greer, in case you need to Google it. And well, doubtless you'll be involved in future Con O'Neill festivals. Maybe next year you'll be talking about your new book, who can say?
Thanks very much, Stuart. I've enjoyed it. I
Thank
came with
you,
fear
Roy.
and trepidation, but I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Guramaget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we are on the last lap now of the first first evening of the Con O'Neill Festival. Let me just tell you what's happening. Sorry, I'm just pulling bits of paper off my my computer. But 4 o'clock it starts tomorrow, and as today it will be on Facebook. We have a film which is a representation of Gordon McCoy's pioneering bus tour, Gaelic East Belfast, and that is followed then by Con's Great Escape, which is this creative, artistic recreation of the story that Roy has just told us. And after that then is another video film, which is Discover Craigiegalen with Mark Doherty, 23 minutes or thereabouts up the Glen, telling his stories, everything from Con to Van Morrison to American servicemen, and it's magnificent. So let's see you again tomorrow. We've got some music now. This is a concert. Some of it's in Irish, some of it's not. It's kind of traditional music, but it's presented with a very modern edge. I'm going to read you a little piece from the act called True, T-R-U Fada. The True was a mythological trio of poet musicians in ancient Ulster. They were revered throughout ancient Ireland, some believing, I'm trying to get this so that I can not look like I'm looking away from y'all. I'll just have to read it. You'll just have to bear with me. Believing their songs and stories came from the future. Northern Ireland trio True draw their inspiration from here. Melodic and lyrical caliber of songs that stand the test of time, with contemporaries like Ye Vagabonds Lankum and Lisa O'Neill. There is a sense that these old songs are inspiring something that will last. Donald Kearney, Zach Troughton, and Michael Mormeka are all seasoned artists, united by a passionate appreciation of the material they perform. I saw them, I think it was probably the start of this year, at the Black Box in Belfast, and I thought they were fantastic. So I said to them, what about True in concert as part of the Con O'Neill Festival? And with the grace of Dee in the background, he's going to crank her up. Enjoy the cake.
Díomh go dtí taisibh trú an tainnim tar an grúpa seo, Donal, Zach agus Michael.
Tá áthas a bheith ag séanam cúpla órán é, Dave. Buin sultas.
Seo Doulaman.
No sin all of their hoodie. Our hurry no curn all and Doulaman gaelach, Doulaman the fariga, Doulaman gaelach. Ta cian bui or sy'n Doulaman werach, ta ga clw is well sy'n Doulaman werach, Doulaman na bin na bui, Doulaman Gwerach, Doulaman na Fariga, Doulaman Gwerach. Rahim which can your lesson Doulaman Gwerach. You know he broke it there, Arsa Doulaman Gwerach. Doulaman na Benabui, Doulaman Gwerach. Doulaman na Fariga, Doulaman Gwerach. The broga braca do, Arsa Doulaman Gwerach. The body dog is through Sherman Doulaman Gwerach. Doulaman na Benabui, Doulaman Gwerach. Doulaman na Fariga, Doulaman Gwerach. Je hebt u het cheaters Doulaman Gwerach. Ik schreeuw de niet naar me Doulaman Gwerach. Die waaien to money naar me Doulaman Gwerach. Wel voedel wie me yummy erse Doulaman Gwerach. Doulaman na Benabui, Doulaman Gwerach. Doulaman na Fariga, Doulaman Gwerach. Doulaman na Benabui, Doulaman Gwerach. Doulaman na Fariga, Doulaman Gwerach. Doulaman na Benabui, Doulaman na Slepcha, Doulaman na Fariga, Doulaman na Jeji, Doulaman na Benabui, Doulaman Gwerach, Doulaman na Fariga, Doulaman Gwerach. Good morning. Pretty to be in Ballinderry, 'twas pretty to be in Ackley, still prettier to be on Bonnie Ram's Island, sitting forever beneath the tree. Ochone, 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 ochone. For often I sailed to Bonnie Ram's Island, arm in arm with Phelim, my dear, and he would whistle and I would sing, and we would make the whole island ring. Ochone, 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 ochone. It's pretty to be in Ballinderry, but now it's sad as sad can be, for the ship that sails from Bonnie Ram's Island is sunk forever beneath the sea. For the ship that sailed from Bonnie Ram's Island is sunk forever beneath the sea. Ochone, 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 Ballinderry, it's pretty to be in Ackley, still prettier to be on Bonnie Ram's Island, sitting forever beneath the tree. Ochone, 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 ochone. So we had a couple of songs there. First one is Doulaman. You might know that in the Irish language. It's a brilliant, amazing tune, about 200 years old at least. And it comes from Dundalk Bay, sort of around Carlingford, where the seaweed sellers would gather their wares and take them to the local markets and try to steal away the farmers' daughters. Then we did 'Twas Pretty to Be in Ballinderry, which is a local song to the two lads here. Both lived in Ballinderry for a long time, and County Antrim. And we actually have told the story of these songs in our two first TrueCast, which are podcasts that we put together over the lockdown, where we're exploring the songs in our repertoire and sort of finding out the history and the stories and everything in between. And actually, the next song we're going to do right now is an original song about a witch that used to live at the top of my hill when I was growing up. It's called Jenny Black's Hill. Gentle mist rolls out the bay, velvet grey. Jenny sets her sights by the spotlight of the moon. Like a witch from hell, she cast a spell, clapped her palms and screamed until the curse was cast on Jenny Black. Still upon the log, the silhouette upon the log, so still and wet. So they talk, we'll get her yet. So they talk, To this day she roams the fields, away she steals that names that lingers on our ears. Spy the passing of the years. Upon the log, silhouette. Upon the log, so still and wet. So they talk, we'll get her yet. So they talk. Upon the log. Upon the log, silhouette. Upon the log, so still and wet. So they talk, we'll get her yet. So they talk. Upon the log, upon the log, so they talk. So we're going to sing an Irish language song. So the theme of this set, I suppose, is Thuras. So we're taking a journey from Dundalk Bay for the seaweed gatherers up through to Ballinderry, and then the Thuras begins as we leave the waters, and the ship that sails on Bunnyram's Island is sunk forever beneath the sea. So this journey that is very familiar to anyone who comes from Ireland, anyone who comes from somewhere where they've had to leave. This Thuras is very important. And then Jenny Black's Hill, you take a journey into the supernatural world, the other world of folk mythology. And then with this song, we stay firmly in the supernatural world, and we actually encounter the Changeling. So this is an Irish language song that comes from the Mourne Mountains from the 18th century, and it's a man on his way to Dublin, and he's stopped by a beautiful woman. She asks him where he's going. He says, I'm on my way to Dublin to get medicine for my wife. She's sick in bed. She says, don't bother. Come with me into these woods here, and I'll show you a good time. He says, no, I need to get this medicine for my wife. I've got a family with kids, and I love them, so I need to go back to them. And at that point, he sees his wife standing before him. And the sick person in the bed is actually a changeling, a sick fairy that has been transferred into the human world. So they head into the woods, and they have a good time. Untitled Chapter. Dag med morgen tenju Giver sin morgen kagon tu jargrun Eskup fin ta lostin Smite schoni le father Toasters chatting down wire Gemarta Hela No one fetter Gomaru Tashi Chintila Senaba August Misha Trigera Bekoru Here Hasalavalu Tamwarni Lai Boygarum Isni Hailum Skabu Tagalog Barafin Lai Tamwarni Haba August Michel Trilea Vekorum Molaba That one's called Aragolga Baila Cléadu, on my way to Dublin. And so the tourist continues, the journey continues. And we actually have this, another Irish language song, which you might do a verse of. And this is again something from the supernatural world. So the tourist, the journey that we're sort of experiencing on this set is a physical journey as well as spiritual journeying between the two lights, between the two places. And in this one, we have Urchil Achragan. So it's a graveyard. A poet has had a rough night and he wakes up at dusk in a graveyard and he encounters a figure. Almost looks like she's coming out of the light itself. And he can't really see, he's more of a haze, but she's a fairy inviting him into the fairy world. But then again, he is drunk. Urchil Achragan Shachal Merer we roam Slairin the Maidna Handiganer Famien the boy Vigriesqua Garaki Agus Linear Cam Skulle vi klancha noen vegar kerino Marley, a chatter Hassan yell the road. Agus with happy August Astrid on the rise road. God cheer the ass the mala, Achur Galia in cheer maror. Could have be climbs and one they are very. Egor chel achragan, shachadel merer fwi So drunk poets getting lost in graveyards. That's a good Irish poem for you. And we're going to go into an original song. And this is actually one that we have recorded with the Ulster Orchestra. We actually did that very recently. More about that in November. We'll be able to share that recording with you. But this is again about two supernatural kind of folk figures. The Pied Piper of Hamelin, or someone like the Pied Piper, and then Alice in Wonderland, a young woman, a young person who explores their own mind and then comes back to the world only to realize that they've left it in the other place. So these are two characters that we've written a song about. It's called Old Types, and we're delighted to be performing for Turris. Thank you very much for inviting us. We're glad to be able to play together again. This is actually the first time we've played since January, so we're thrilled to be able to play for you. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Here's Old Types. Nighttime in this dark water in the hole. Just me and this old man, musician type, he taps his ash in a bowl. Songs of another world, they bring me near, then fumbling for his beer, slowly he speaks into my ear. I knew that times were a-changing in that village when the rats crept in. The little kids that followed me, they just took the chance to dance. I could see that they needed to be free. Oh, don't you pity old types like me? Met a lady yesterday, sitting on the street. She seemed to know my fears. She told me she saw her own Wonderland when she was mad and young. Now she holds out a cold upturned hand. I hear the people, they pass me by, says she, with a wizened look and a glassy eye, like blinking stars that one by one recede. I have lost everything I need, but no, don't you pity, oh, types like me, oh, don't you pity, oh, types like me, oh, don't you pity, oh, types like me. Magov, thank you. It's the first time we played that together, so hope you liked it. So we're finished here. So Gurmila Magov, we're gonna just maybe finish with a little a cappella song. So this is a Robbie Burns tune, and it's kind of a lullaby for an insomniac. So this is the final Turris, the journey into sleep that we all have at the end of the day. So this is I Walk and O. Slán live. Summer's a pleasant time, flowers of every colour, the water runs o'er the heuch, and I long for my true lover. I walking home, walking still and weary, sleep I can get none, for thinking of my dearie. When I sleep I dream, when I wake I'm weary, sleep I can get none, for thinking of my dearie. I walking home, walking still and weary, sleep I can get none, for thinking of my dearie. Lonely night comes on, all the lave are sleeping, as I think on my bonny lad, and I blur my eyes weeping. I walking home, walking still and weary, sleep I can get none, for thinking of my dearie. Good Slán.
Slán.
There you go. That was true. That was live. That was really beautiful. Thank you very much to Donald, to Zach, and to Michael for that contribution. That is the end of the first leg of the Con O'Neill Festival 2020 online. We got there. It hasn't been entirely easy, and there was a bit of a chase around to find out where you could actually access this festival. But by the sound of it, a lot of you made your way here, so thank you very much. And we will endeavour to archive much of this evening's programme, so you can watch it again at your leisure. Thank you to True then. As Spandau Ballet said, this much is true. Thank you to Urban Villages, the Urban Villages Initiative, who helped us with funding, to Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and the Ireland Reconciliation Fund, to Carja Tourists, the Friends of Tourists who have helped it along, to Roy Greer for that fascinating conversation about his book, to Kiva and Linda then, who told us the variations on the tourist story and the language that is rolling up the Craigie Glen, and you can access all of that wonderful stuff. carjatourist.com is another source of information. Thank you to Dee McAdams, who's in the background then, pulling all the wires and making it all work as slickly as possible, and it's gone quite well. And thank you to everybody then. Let's do it again tomorrow. Let's do leg 2. 4 o'clock we start tomorrow. We have Gordon McCoy, and we have his Gordon's East Belfast. Then we have Con's Great Escape, which is a kind of an illustrated kind of yarn for children of all ages. It's very strong indeed. And then we have Mark Doherty, who's taken us up the Craigie Glen for a 23-minute film, and you won't be disappointed in that. So this is me, Stuart Bailey, saying thank you for joining the Con O'Neill Festival. I'm going to have a bit of a lie down now, but it's been great. Slán.